It's easy to tell the difference between someone who's just a friend and someone who means more, especially when it comes to JUNGKOOK and Taehyung. We saw it clearly when they arrived at the airport together. From the first moment, you could feel that energy they have when they're around each other, that unique way of being by each other's side. It wasn't something exaggerated or acted, you could simply see that there's a special connection between them. And no, it has nothing to do with the theories that some people have wanted to invent. As soon as they appeared, some fan groups started commenting on things that don't make sense, especially the fans. As has happened many times before, they tried to divert attention with baseless rumors, saying that Taehyung and JUNGKOOK aren't really together, or that they barely talk to each other. But those comments don't hold up if you take a moment to truly observe how they behave around each other. There's a very clear difference when JUNGKOOK is with Taehyung. It's not just a physical closeness. It's the way they look at each other, how they coordinate without even speaking, the natural way they share the space. You feel they're comfortable, that they know each other well, and that they enjoy being together, even in a public place like an airport where there are cameras everywhere. If we compare it to other occasions, for example, when JUNGKOOK was at the airport with Jimin, the contrast is evident. In one of those moments, like when they were in Vietnam, JUNGKOOK was seen walking several steps ahead of Jimin. They each went their own way, without much interaction. But when he's with Taehyung, that doesn't happen, they move together, synchronized, as if they don't want to miss a single second of each other. What's most striking is that despite many people trying to deny what there is between them or invent other stories, every time they appear together, that connection remains intact. It's not just about being in the same place. It's the way they look at each other, how they smile subtly, how their steps seem to keep the same rhythm. For those who closely follow their relationship, this isn't a surprise. Taehyung and JUNGKOOK have shared unique moments for years, and although they aren't always in front of the cameras, when they are, it's clear that there is trust, affection, and a lot of love. There are people who may not want to accept this. It bothers them to see them so close, or they insist on creating conflicts where there aren't any. But the truth is that while others talk, they continue to move forward, sharing their time, their space, and their closeness. We can't help but mention something that continues to be a source of great pride for all fans. Taehyung is now an official Coca-Cola ambassador. Seeing him pose for that photo shoot was something special. He seemed comfortable, confident, and with that characteristic presence he's always had. That relaxed smile, that calm gaze. Everything about him conveys a blend of elegance and simplicity that sets him apart. Over the years, Taehyung has built a solid career. He's proven that he not only has talent, but also a way of being that makes a difference. He's always been kind, authentic, without trying to pretend he's not something he's not. And perhaps that's why he's managed to connect so much with people. Because it's not just about being famous, but about staying true to yourself, even when everyone is looking at you. Now, if we think a little further, it would be great to imagine a project where he and JUNGKOOK shared a campaign together. Imagine that, Taehyung representing a brand as renowned as Coca-Cola. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen them in such a setting, sharing casual moments with a bottle in hand, smiling, or just hanging out as they normally do. There have been similar scenes in the past, when the boys appeared together in commercials or behind the scenes, relaxed, showing a connection that has always been there. So it wouldn't be surprising if at some point we saw Taehyung and JUNGKOOK participating together again, naturally, as a couple. And speaking of spontaneous moments, it's impossible not to remember what happened recently at the airport. That video that many people have been commenting on shows a very simple but meaningful scene. Taehyung stopped, bent down, and picked up a small piece of paper that was lying on the ground. He's not just the most handsome man in the world, as so many headlines repeat, but also someone who acts with conscience and respect, even when there are no cameras in front of him or when no one is asking him to. That's what stands out most about him. His actions, no matter how small they may seem, demonstrate a constant commitment to setting a good example. That's why he's so beloved. Because beyond the stage, the lights, and the awards, he remains someone who cares about the environment, the people around him, and how he can contribute with simple things. And of course, when we talk about him, it's impossible not to think of JUNGKOOK. Because for a long time, many have noticed the way the two relate to each other. It's not just that they work together or that they look good in photos. There's something deeper, more real, a connection that's evident in every glance, in every gesture they share. Sometimes they're surrounded by people, other times the cameras are on them, but their way of being close doesn't change. They seek each other out, they look at each other, they touch each other naturally, as if the world disappeared for a moment. For those who have followed them for years, this connection comes as no surprise. It's always been there, only now it's more evident, and it's not something that can be faked. Their closeness doesn't seem like a script or a strategy. It feels authentic, like those relationships that are formed from trust, respect, and genuine affection. Some may interpret it as a game, as part of the show, but you only have to watch closely to realize it goes much further. When they're together, everything seems to flow effortlessly, and it shows even in the silences. In the way they sit next to each other, in the way they lean on each other with a hand on their back, in the way they laugh at things no one else understands. All of this speaks to a relationship that has grown over time, that has faced rumors and that remains strong, without needing explanations. That's why, every time there's an update or a new moment shared between them, fans are happy. Not because they're trying to force something, but because they recognize what's there, a solid relationship, with a history that has stood the test of time and the gaze of others. Taekook isn't defined only by his public moments. There's also a story behind the scenes that's intuited, even if it's not always visible. There's something very particular about the way Taehyung and JUNGKOOK relate to each other. It's not just what they do together, but how they do it. If you observe closely, you'll notice that there are certain gestures between them that are repeated over time. They're not things you do with just anyone. They're patterns that emerge when they're around each other, as if their body reacts without much thought. And that's what's interesting, they don't seem to be acting. It doesn't seem forced, it doesn't feel like part of a show. It's something that happens naturally, a kind of language that only they understand and that fans have learned to recognize. For example, it's not uncommon to see them touching each other without discomfort, as if it were something common between them. A brush on the arm, a hand on the shoulder, a way of leaning that needs no explanation. They don't do it to get attention. In fact, it often happens when they think no one is looking or when they're distracted. Sometimes it's just a quick glance, a gentle movement, but those who follow their story know that there's a lot behind those little moments. Because when two people know each other well, they don't need to say anything to understand each other. And that's what stands out most about the connection between Taehyung and JUNGKOOK, the ease with which they seek each other out, understand each other, and support each other. At various events, presentations, or broadcasts, there have been moments when it's clear they're completely in sync. If one turns their head, the other is already looking at them. If one laughs, the other is already smiling. If Taehyung leans to the side, JUNGKOOK accommodates himself without hesitation. It's something that just happens. There's a kind of habit in their gestures that makes it clear they spend a lot of time together and are comfortable in that closeness. Their movements, their pauses, even their silences seem to fit together very naturally. The most striking thing is that this doesn't change much when they're in front of others. There may be cameras, presenters, even thousands of screaming fans, but they remain the same. They're not acting or putting on a show to impress. They move freely, as if the space around them doesn't matter as much when they're next to each other. And it's in those moments that you most notice that there's a real connection between them. Because it's not just about looking good together or sharing a stage. It's about how they care for each other, how they understand each other, how they've built a relationship that has stood the test of time and everything that comes with fame. Many have tried to interpret that closeness. Some think it's part of fan service, others that they're simply good friends. But there are details that don't fit into a simple friendship. Because it's not common for two people to behave like this so consistently over the years. It's not just a matter of gestures, but of attitudes. In how they look at each other, how they wait for each other, how they react to each other even when they're not directly interacting. That constant attention, that kind of care, is something that can't be faked. And although they've never felt the need to explain their relationship in words, the truth is that they've often made it clear how important they are to each other. From interviews to spontaneous moments, their words always show respect, affection, and a connection that goes beyond what is normally seen between co-workers. It's clear they truly know each other, that they've grown together, that they've been through difficult times and also through periods of great joy. All of this has strengthened their bond. In the case of Taehyung and JUNGKOOK, beyond what each represents as artists, there's a shared history that unites them. From their days as trainees to international tours, they've been by each other's side at almost every turn. And that's reflected in how they carry themselves. It's not just physical closeness. It's a complicity that has formed over the years, that has strengthened over time and that doesn't need labels to be understood. They don't talk much about it, but those who have followed them for a long time know how to read between the lines.